Hello, 10.6 is on the volume and surface area of sphere, so kind of like a ball-shaped 3D item. We're going to be calculating both surface area and volume, just like our other shapes. To draw a sphere, the easiest way to do it is to start with a circle, and then you're going to do kind of like an oval shape in the middle of the circle. And when you go down and forward, that's going to be the solid part. And then when you go to the back part, that's going to be the hidden line. And that's how I draw a sphere. So if you have another way, you can do that. Or you can draw it like this. For a sphere, there are some pieces that you need to know. The point in the middle, so in the middle of all the sides and the circles, that's the center. And then the distance from the center to the outside is the radius. The radius is equal all the way around the sphere. Just like with a circle, the diameter is the entire distance from one point to the opposite point. And the radius is half of the diameter. So radius equals diameter divided by 2. And then a chord is just a segment inside of a sphere that's just 2 points connected, and it's not part of the radius or the diameter. The surface area for a sphere is 4 pi r squared. So that's what you're going to be using. R is still the radius. So for example number 1, find the surface area of the sphere. They give us a radius of 8, so we just have to plug that in. For these, you are still going to be leaving it in terms of pi sometimes. So when you do that, you are going to multiply together everything that's not pi. So we're going to multiply 4 times 8 squared. So if I, grab my calculator, we're going to be able to figure out what our answer is in terms of pi, 8 squared. So we'll get 256 pi. Then if they want the rounded answer, you're just going to type 256 pi into your calculator, and that will give you our rounded answer of about 804.2. And it's okay to round to 1 decimal point once you get to the last answer. These are both surface areas, so our units would be inches squared. Then, for example 2, the surface area of a sphere is 20.25 pi square centimeters. What is the diameter? So in order to find the diameter, we need to figure out what the radius is, because diameter is equal to the radius times 2. Using the surface area formula, which is 4 pi r squared, we are going to be able to find the radius, which will then help us find the diameter. Plugging in everything we know the surface area is 20.25 pi, and that's going to equal the 4 pi r squared. And we are trying to solve for pi. If you notice, there's pi on both sides of the equation, so we can start by dividing both sides by pi to get rid of that. Then we'll have 20.25 equals 4r squared. And then we want to get rid of the 4, so we'll divide both sides by 4. And when we type that in, we're going to get 5.0625 equals r squared. And we don't want to round this again because it's not our final answer, so we're going to leave it like that. And then we're going to take the square root of our answer, and that will give us 2.25 is equal to r. With these questions, again, you want to make sure you are reading what they're asking you to find, because a lot of times people will stop at r but then not answer the question. And in the question, they wanted us to find the diameter, which is equal to the radius of 2.5 times 2. So our diameter is going to be equal to 4.5. And our units is just going to be centimeters because our diameter is just a length, and length doesn't have units squared. Okay. Our next example says, in a sport called zorbing, a person rolls down a hill inside of an inflatable ball surrounded by another ball, and the diameter of the outer ball is 12 feet. Find the surface area of the outer ball. We know the diameter is equal to 12. The radius is half of that, so our radius has to be 6. Once we know our radius, we can plug everything into our surface area formula, which is 4 pi r squared. So our surface area is going to be 4 pi times 6 squared. If we're leaving it in terms of pi on your calculator, you are just going to type in 4 times 6 squared to get 144 pi. And if we are rounding, then we would type pi into our calculator. So if we take 144 pi, that gives us about 452.4. It's still surface area, so feet squared would be our answer. So you just need to make sure you're reading the directions on the quiz and the test to make sure that you are giving the correct answer that they're asking for. Awesome. So then that's our surface area. Next is volume. And just like before, volume is, I guess in a sphere, about the same amount of work. The volume formula is 4/3 pi r cubed. So if we do this, the soccer ball has a diameter of 9 inches. So if diameter equals 9, radius is of half of that of 4.5. We are going to find its volume. Volume is 4/3 pi r cubed. So we are going to just replace the r with our radius of 4.5. Now, a lot of you are wondering how to type this 4/3 into your calculator to solve this. There are a couple of different ways you can do it. One way is you can take 4 times the 4.5 cubed and then take that answer and divide it by 3. Or in parentheses, you can just type 4 divided by 3. And that's the same thing as 4/3. So I'm going to do the top one, 4 times 4.5 cubed. And that gives us 364.5. And then we're going to take that answer and divide it by 3. So if we leave this in terms of pi, we're going to get volume is 121.5 pi. And then if we give our rounded answer, we'll just type pi into our calculator. That's about 381.7. And our units was inches. And when you're working with volume, it's going to be inches cubed. So those would be the 2 possible answers for this example. All right, then our last example for today, they want us to find the volume of the composite solid. So if we look, the outside shape is a cylinder. So that's what we're going to start with. And then there's like a sphere cut out, except it's not a full sphere because this full sphere would go up on the top too. So it's going to be half of a sphere. So we're going to have to find the volume of the cylinder, and then we're going to have to find half of the volume of a sphere. So we're just going to multiply it by 1/2. Okay, so if you don't remember the volume for a cylinder, we can go back to those notes. I think it was 10.2. And volume of a cylinder is pi r squared height. So we're going to use that information, pi r squared height, and then subtract half of the volume of the sphere, which we just went over that formula is 4/3 pi r cubed. Okay, so if we start with the volume of the cylinder, we need to know the radius of the cylinder, which they give us on the bottom, is 2 inches. So we can plug that in. The height is also 2 inches. And then if we look, that is the same radius as the sphere that's in there. So our radius there is going to be 2 cubed. Okay. If we are giving our answer in terms of pi, again, we're going to type everything into the calculator except for pi. So 2 squared is 4, multiplied by another 2 is going to give us 8 pi. All right, this one might be a little bit more work. So if we start, we'll break this up. We'll do it over on the side so you can see what I am doing. Okay, so we're going to have 1/2 times 4/3 times pi times 2 cubed. If we start, let's start by multiplying these two together. A fraction times a fraction, you just multiply the top and the bottom. Times pi, and then 2 cubed is 2 times 2 times 2, which is going to give us 8. I'm going to simplify this because it's going to make it easier to change it to 2/3 times pi times 8. So then when you take a whole number times a fraction, you take the top number times the whole number. So that's going to give us 16/3 pi. Okay, so then we have 16/3 pi that we're subtracting from 8 pi. And this is bringing back our common denominator. So before we subtract, we need a common denominator. So we're going to multiply both of these by 3 to get 24 pi over 3 minus 16 pi over 3. And if we take 24 minus 16, that's going to leave us with 8/3 pi. And then, so if we were leaving in terms of pi, that would be our answer. So we would take 8 times pi, and then we would divide that answer by 3. And that's where we would get our rounded answer of about 8.4. And if we look at our units, it's inches. And because it's volume, we are going to cube them. So those would be the two possible answers for this one. Okay, so there you are. If you have any questions on this unit, just let me know and I'll get back to you as soon